Hey there, welcome. Welcome to Kidney Conversations with ReMend. It's a webinar designed for patients by patients and where we have open, honest discussions about kidney care. Happy World Kidney Day. It's a global health awareness focusing on the importance of kidneys and reducing the frequency and impact of kidney disease and its associated health problems worldwide. I'm Kiku Boyance, and I'm the Executive Director for ReMend, which is a peer-to-peer mentoring organization that helps encourage people with kidney disease make informed decisions about their kidney health. We're a network of individuals who've suffered chronic kidney disease, illness, dialysis, or a kidney transplant. We offer advice and emotional support to motivate and empower those who are on their kidney journey. Visit remend.org to discover more about what we do and the various ways you can help support us as we support others on their kidney journey. Exciting group here today, guys. I'm thrilled to have on this World Kidney Day, these kidney care professionals. If the questions that I'm going to ask them today is if they could speak to every kidney patient in the world, given their occupation and engagement in the kidney community, what would the three most important things be that they want people to know? And I'm excited to welcome them. Dr. Aman Faravardi, he's a nephrologist with Balboa Nephrology and Sharp Kidney and Pancreas Transplant Center. He's also into Balboa research, so we can maybe talk a little bit about that too, Dr. Faravardi. Charmaine Griffith, she has been a ReMend mentor since 2014. Awesome. Cindy Polis, one of my favorite people in the world. She's a nurse and education nurse at Balboa United. David Ordaz, a wealth of information. He's a patient financial counselor with Balboa United. And Mr. Justin Bennett, he's a nurse with the Home Therapies Transitional Care with Fresenius. And Miss Tammy Wright, also a wealth of information. We love Tammy. She's the transplant coordinator at Sharp Healthcare. And today, as I mentioned, what are the top three things you want people to know, people on their kidney journey to know? So welcome, everyone. I'm going to stop sharing and please turn on your cameras.
Hey, everyone.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hey, thank you so much for being here. Justin's putting his hair together, just like David was earlier. Thanks for being here. I'm nervous because I'm freaking out. There was just, having a little bit of technical difficulty, but I'm shaking it off right now. So if I seem weird. Okay, so housekeeping, a little bit of just a few notes before we start. We'd love to hear from people joining the webinar. So please type questions in the Q&A box below, Q&A or the chat box, whatever. We'll get to the questions. Maybe we'll get to them during the conversation or after, but we'll definitely get to the conversation or to the questions. Also, we have a short survey after the webinar. So if you could please complete that. You can do it anonymously if you'd like, but it's very simple questions. It helps us out if you are able to complete that survey for us. So let's get into it, kids. Let's start with Miss Tammy Wright, Sharp Kidney and Pancreas Transplant Center. Tell us a little bit about what you do with Sharp at Sharp Healthcare.
I've been here for almost 20 years and I am the living donor coordinator, one of them. And I also do call for people who are on our transplant waiting list for the deceased list also. I have to tell you that one of the best experiences are calling a patient and telling them that we have a transplant scheduled for you. That's there are no words that can describe to anybody how much hope that gives people. And so I think transplant gives hope. I think that the people that I've worked with, the many of them, their lives are transformed after getting a transplant. We were talking before everybody came on and Charmaine said, "Excuse me, I'm eating ice cream." And I said, "You eat your ice cream," because oftentimes when we're sick, when people have chronic kidney disease, they may not be able to eat dairy. They may not be able to eat things that my transplant patients can eat. And so I think that it's a little scary getting a transplant, but I have to tell you that there's a team involved and all of us are going to be there to give you the knowledge to help you. You're not in this alone. I want to say that to everybody else. And we're here to be a success. There's 2 people on the panel today who have luckily told me they're coming up 20 years for their transplant. That's amazing because that's 20 years of extra life for people. Charmaine is giving back by helping other dialysis patients. Kiku's giving back by helping share her experience and helping others who may be going through something similar that she went through. So, you know, we're here to help. We're here to support. We're here to help. If you have living donors, we know we've been doing living donations since 1954. And a lot of people are a little bit nervous about that. But my responsibility is to make sure that the living kidney donor is healthy enough to donate. We're not going to allow them to do something that is going to create a problem for them that we can foresee in the future. I can tell you that I have almost every living kidney donor that I talk to tells me that they are gracious that they were able to do it because it helped their loved one. Sometimes it helped a stranger. One of the weirdest situations that I had was I had a patient put my phone number on their car on a decal, and it said, "My wife needs a transplant, O blood type or any blood type, please call," and my phone number was on it.
It's amazing.
Believe it or not, we've had 2 of those, and both of those patients have been transplanted. So
She actually works with ReMend. I know exactly who you're talking about. Yeah.
So I just want to say to people who are waiting for a transplant, share your story. You don't have to say, "Hey, I need a transplant." You can just say, "Hey, I have kidney problems. If you're interested in learning more about that, here's my transplant center, contact them." We have other resources. We have microsites where you can just put your story on a line and give them a card. There's different ways to tell your story and get it out there. So we as a team are here to help support you in whatever we can. Was that good?
That's great. I don't know. Are those the top 3 things that you want to say with that? Okay, that's cool.
I just want to say it gives you better life. It gives you
Yeah.
prolonged life and better quality of life from what my understanding is.
Yeah, I would like to add to that, you know, that I talk to a lot of patients about just, you know, I share my experience that I am a transplanted patient with dialysis patients too. It just kind of helps to build that trust a little bit. And then that opens up the conversation, and it kind of leads from one area into like the whole transplant conversation, because people have so many questions and they want to know, really, is it really like that? Is it really like this? Is it, you know, and it's just the thing, like my experience was between the first transplant and the second transplant, the matches were different, obviously. And so like I share with people that I've been on the same cocktail for 20 years, right? Just the advance in medication. Like I take 3, that's it. 3, I take 2 twice a day and I take 1 in the morning, and that's it. And so it's been, you know, tweaked a little bit here and there, but I think that's the big thing that still is out there that people get scared about, like, oh, all the medication that you have to take. Well, the matching is different now. And there's been such great advancements in the medication that you take. So I just wanted to add that.
Me too. Like my medication has been cut back a little bit. So I'm only on one major medication that I take twice a day. Yeah. I'm taking tacrolimus twice a day. And then I do have other, but you know, not very many others. So it's not, I mean, it's way more convenient and not as scary. And I did want to add to something you mentioned, Tammy, that little fact that I found here: living donation numbers have gone down, possibly because it's difficult for people to ask people to donate their kidney. And I love that you mentioned the microsites and the sign, even though it had your phone number on it. I mean, it worked. But what can you tell us about living related donors versus deceased donors in your opinion, in the line of work that you are doing?
Well, the two of you both got deceased transplants and they've both worked very long. And that's not always the case. So living transplants typically last you longer. It can either be from somebody that's a good match or somebody that's a good age match. We can also get you transplanted sooner, meaning that we can get you transplanted as soon as we get that living donor worked up. We don't have to wait on the transplant list, which unfortunately can be anywhere from 5 to 8 years in San Diego. It could be even longer depending on your blood type, depending on how difficult it is to match you. So the longer you're waiting for that transplant, the sicker you possibly may get, and you may not be able to get that transplant. So with living kidney transplants and donation, we can schedule it. I have one scheduled on Tuesday. It's a daughter who's donating to her mom. Everything's planned. And I can tell you that they are going to do really well, and that kidney's going to last her for a long period of time. And she's going to feel
Awesome.
better.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
I'd love to hear that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And so going back to the list, is it true you can be listed in different cities?
Yeah.
And how does that work if that's true?
They changed the way that allocation, or how we send the organs out to the people on the transplant list, and now it's every 250 miles. So if you have a transplant center that's over 250 miles from you, if you get put on that transplant list, you get a different pool of donors that you get pulled from. So it's a little different in each area with the 250 miles out. So the more transplant centers that you're at, the better likelihood of you getting a transplant option. Some people actually move to other cities that have a shorter waiting time. San Diego and Los Angeles have a little bit longer waiting time. And so it really just varies according to, when I first started this, you'd be on the list for 3 to 5 years and that was it. And I just looked at the numbers just today, just now. There's 88,778 people waiting for a transplant for a kidney. We only have a small amount of deceased kidneys that are available for those people. And so the supply is not there. We don't have, what we need to do is we need to increase living kidney donation. And that is our way for us to get people transplanted. And again, we do it safely, where we make sure that donor's health isn't going to be a problem afterwards. That's my number one, and Dr. Faravarde's number one responsibility when we're seeing living donors is, are we going to do no harm?
And we're going to have our next kidney conversations next month, because it is Donate Life Month. We'll be focusing on living donation. So we will definitely go into that. And I think we have other videos too. We've done 2 other webinars about this too. So it's a big topic and something that we can all stand to learn more about in the kidney community. So thank you so much, Tammy.
Thank you.
So now I want to talk to Miss Cindy Polis. She's our education nurse with Balboa Nephrology and an incredible resource.
Wow.
Tell us a little bit about
Thank
what you do, and the top 3 things that you want people to know about kidney care education.
Wow, thank you for that introduction.
You're welcome.
This kidney disease has been actually an honor to work with our patients, and really giving them more education to really understanding their disease, their journey. And I think for me, when I speak to my patients, I really like to make the connection and find out where they are in their kidney disease. And that gives me an opportunity to present better interventions for them. So maybe it was caused by blood pressure, maybe it was caused by diabetes. Usually they go hand in hand. So I think for me, I would have the opportunity to really talk to my patients and teach them more about renal preservation and their GFR. I think they
GFR, what does it
Mhm.
stand for? What does GFR stand
glomerulus filtration rate. It's a big
Good
one.
job.
It's a tongue teaser.
for?
So I think for patients to really understand their GFR, and especially when I call them and I'll talk to them and I'll say, your GFR is at 20%. A lot of times they don't even understand, well, what does that mean? What does 20% mean? And so it gives me an opportunity to really dive deeper into that. And once they know that there are things they can do to prevent further decline on their kidneys, they are more receiving of the education and more receiving of the phone call.
Mhm.
So yeah, and what does that look like? That can mean better diet. That can mean more exercise if they're not exercising. That can mean managing their blood pressure better. That can mean managing their blood glucose better. Then all of a sudden the lights are turning on. So education is extremely important because a lot of people want to really preserve that kidney function as long as possible.
Mhm.
So that definitely would be something I like to really emphasize when I'm speaking to my patients. And really, some patients fear the idea of transplant. Some patients fear the idea of modalities and dialysis. So I think building that relationship in the beginning with your patient is extremely important to make that connection. So when that conversation needs to happen, they are prepared to receive it. So it's not, you can't just dive in the deep end and that everybody knows how to swim, because not everybody does. So you go in slow and you go in with that relationship. So when it's time to really talk about that modality, they're prepared to receive that. And what does that look like? And what is a modality? What is dialysis? And try to really explain that in a very sensitive manner, because it's a hard conversation to have. So yeah, I think part of education for me is really making that connection with my patients and really building that relationship. That's really important because you want to gain that trust and you want to understand what the fears are. Because if you understand the fears, then you can help eliminate those fears, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, that's kind of where I come in.
Cindy, thank you. I know
Yeah.
you've helped. We've spoken to a lot of the same or many of the same patients. I know you have quite a few patients that you work with, but
Mhm.
so appreciative of what all of you do. I just work directly with Cindy a lot. So thank you so much for being
Yeah.
here and sharing. And now I'd like to move to someone who is seriously a wealth of information. This person puts their own personal number on our website. I also work for Balboa Nephrology. It's the marketing manager, but he gives me his cell phone number to put on there. I had to tell him, no, we can't do that anymore. But he's so awesome. It's Mr. David Ordaz.
Hey,
And
thanks everybody.
he's the patient financial education counselor for Balboa United. So what are the top 3 things that you want people to know about what you do as a patient financial counselor for Balboa United? And, give us a little rundown of what you do.
Thank you. So as a patient financial counselor, I assist our patients who are uninsured, who are underinsured, who need resources in the community, county, state, and federal levels. I educate a lot of patients who are transitioning into end-stage renal disease, who have a lot of questions. Many of them don't know what kind of questions. So I explain what kind of questions are usually asked of me, or what is important to know about transitioning into dialysis treatments, or just in having chronic kidney disease in general. As a patient financial counselor, I properly screen patients, unbiased information, so I can screen patients to make sure they have all their medical needs in order, have the best possible coverage that they can get based on medical cost, medication cost, their medical needs, their goals, their network of medical providers. That's always really, really important. Make sure that they can not only have the primary insurance, I screen them for secondary insurance, which is incredibly important just because of the cost of medical care that all our patients have. It can be overwhelming. I give information about different resources like disability, their state disability, SSI, Social Security disability. And I also serve as a resource for a lot of programs. There's programs for emotional support. There's programs for food assistance, financial aid. There's programs for, for transportation. How are you going to get to and from dialysis? Many patients that I speak to say, oh, I have a family. They can take me, my nephew, my grandchild, my child. And I'm sure that they would love to take that person to and back from treatment. It's just, they should also have the right to have a life and do the thing that they have to do, go to work, go to school without having to take a patient to and from dialysis treatments. There's a lot of benefits. Also, I help our patients understand their responsibilities, how to become your own patient advocate. That's always a big thing, simply because it's a complicated world, a whole world of insurance, and
Yeah,
having somebody to help you through it was great, but
right.
knowing how to do it yourself is even more important.
Right. I had no idea. And I think, Charmaine, you're in the same boat. I mean, when we were both
Yeah.
diagnosed, like I was diagnosed like 25 years ago. And there was, so I was working with your counterpart, or she used to be your counterpart, Annette Oat.
Yeah.
Shout out to her, Annette. But you guys provide life-changing information. So, including patient financial responsibilities and what they can expect when they start their kidney journey. But knowing all of that, those amazing things that you do, what are the top 3 things you want people to know about patient financial responsibilities?
That there's always help. There's always help, and don't let the price scare you. Again, for all your medical costs, there's always something we can do. And again, if you're a Balboa nephrology patient, please give me a ring, visit our website, send me an email, and I'll be more than happy to help. What else? Again, disability benefits, those are very important. If you're under 65 or over 65, just haven't retired yet, you might still qualify for state disability, SSI, or Social Security disability. And more importantly, again, I give unbiased. My position is agnostic to the organization's financial interest. So if you need assistance in picking the best possible coverage, especially when it comes to Medicare, give me a call. I'm not a sales agent. I'm not a broker. I don't gain anything financially by helping you enroll onto the best possible coverage that you can get. So
I love that. I love that you said that.
Mhm.
Because, nowadays, people are probably like not very trusting because of, the times that we're in. But thank you so much for saying that.
yeah,
I have a
it's
question about that.
yeah, of course.
Question. So when people are diagnosed with, so they have to go on dialysis, are they automatically given not Medicare, Medi-Cal, whatever? I mean, how does that work? How do they transition to that?
All right. So Medi-Cal first, I'll explain that. Medi-Cal is a state sponsored insurance, and you qualify for that based on medical needs. Sorry about that. Medical needs. I'm sorry, based on family size and income and assets. So we have to screen you for that to see if you qualify for that. Not everybody qualifies, not even if you're ill. It's all based on income, assets, and family size. Medicare is different. Medicare, you qualify for that if you have worked at least 40 credits, basically 10 years of your life, filed taxes, paid into the FICA system, and that's how you get credit when you Medicare when you turn 65. Or you can also get Medicare if you're under 65 and have a disability that impedes you from working from certain substantial gainful uh, work. So that's another way to get Medicare. But it does become very complicated. The way Medicare is set up, you got Medicare Part A, which is
Yeah.
usually at no cost, but has a deductible. You got Medicare Part B that covers professional services, has a deductible, has a monthly premium, only covers 80% of your all your medical needs, professional needs. Then you got Medicare Part D that's been privatized, and you got to purchase that. And if you want prescription drug coverage, and who doesn't? So you have to work with that. You have to work with an employer group health plan if you have insurance through your employer. That also comes to play, and who's paying first, who's your secondary insurance, all of that, or coordination of benefits it's called, is really important to know about. So
So
sorry,
if you
I
want to
think-
learn more, about
yes,
this,
yes,
please
I
go
mean,
to.
I can go all day about this,
I
really.
know, I'm sorry, I'm totally cutting you off. But please go to balboacare.com, and he's got his own department now. Yay for you. And just go under Balboa Value-Based Care. You'll see the logo on the top right, and it's under Insurance Council. That's your page, David.
Yes.
So right on. Thank you so much. Wealth of information, like I said. Okay, kids. So now we're going to a freshie. He's new with our kidney conversations. It's Mr. Justin Bennett, and he's with Home Therapies Transitional Care it's a Fresenius property. So welcome, and thank you so much for being here. And tell us a little bit about what Home Therapies Transitional Care is and what you do for them, with them.
Well, hi, thanks for having me. And what we do at the transitional care unit is people who are brand new to dialysis will start their journey here. We have our patients come 5 days a week, and we have a low patient to staff ratio. So our techs and nurses have time to explain things to our patients and give them a nice background education on all of the things that we do. I mean, why do we draw labs? What is a potassium? What is a phosphorus? Why do we care what those are? Why do we need to be vaccinated? Why do we want a permanent access? All these things that historically we haven't done a good job of educating our patients when they start dialysis on. So the theory here is that when we graduate our patients, they come to us 5 days a week for 4 weeks. They are empowered and educated and capable to make good decisions and be their own advocate. And that's what we're real passionate about around here.
What a beautiful facility. If you're in San Diego, that's where it is, but it's brand new, right? I took a little tour of
we
it.
opened it right at a year ago. We're celebrating a year of being open this month.
It's a really cool facility, and it's so amazing that is being offered, that you actually get to be trained in home hemodialysis. So thank you for sharing that. What are the top 3 things you want people to know about dialysis and what you do?
Oh, I've been in the dialysis field for a while, since the 19th century. But the 3 pieces I would give, number 1 would be to lead your own healthcare team. If you start dialysis, you have a care team. I mean, it consists of your nephrologist, your social worker, your dietitian, and the nurse. The most important member of that team is you. It's been my experience that people view the other members of the care team as like the bosses or whatever, telling them what to do. Like if a patient might say that my doctor wants me to take 2 phosphorus binders during my meals, but I don't like to take them, and I often forget because they aren't that important. If you are the leading member of your care team, you'd be, I understand the dangers of having prolonged high phosphorus and calcium levels, and I try my best not to forget to take the medications to keep my levels safe, as well as maybe reach out to the dietitian for tips on meal planning and foods to avoid. So once the reasoning behind the care team's recommendations are better understood and agreed with, the more likely the patient will be to lead their care successfully and for their own benefit, as opposed to just doing what was recommended. Another thing would be not to let dialysis stop you from doing anything you did before starting dialysis. I've had several patients that have said they wish they could still do this or that. I've heard from going to a concert, riding a motorcycle, traveling abroad, snowboarding, living in an RV, taking a cruise, and say they can't do those things. My first question is why? Why do you think that you can't do those? And with few exceptions, including freshwater swimming and competing in full contact martial arts, we find out that we can do those things, and there might be some more steps involved, and it might be a little more work for you being on dialysis, but we can still do all those things that we did before. So
Right. I mean,
we want
it's a
to-
change of a lifestyle for sure, but
Yeah.
just talk to your team and find out, you know, hey, I want to travel, which I did on peritoneal dialysis. It is, like you said, Justin, just a little bit more planning, but people can help you through that. You know, I went to Italy, I went to Tahiti. It was all for work, but you know, I was able to do that. I ordered my supplies and they were there when I arrived, and you know, you have to make arrangements to have that taken to your hotel or wherever you're staying. But I mean, don't think that you can't do things like travel, shoot on the martial arts. I wish I was able to do that.
I know, I was gonna say the same thing, like, oh, darn it. But you know, to your point, Kiko, is that I wanted to say that you know, my thing was swimming. Like I wanted to swim in the ocean, you know, and I'll never forget the first time that I went in there, like I kept like, because I had my cath right in my stomach, and so I was like tiptoeing, like, because I was just so afraid. But man, it was just so great, you know. But I wouldn't have known if I hadn't asked or I hadn't had that open conversation with my medical team. I did ride motorcycles when I was on PD, and actually took the bike up to the track one day, up to Willow Springs. But yeah, I took too much fluid off in the morning, so I was like really tired. But anyway, that's a whole other story. But yeah, so you can still do like everything that you want to do. I traveled too. I didn't do international, but I still did a lot of like RVing. I did, you know, I traveled, you know, within country, and so you could really have, like, for me, it was just really a much better quality of life for me.
And we have a previous webinar about peritoneal dialysis, and we share more of our experiences. So please check that out on our YouTube channel. But I'm sorry to interrupt you, Justin. Go on.
The third thing I would say would be to embrace positivity. Almost without exception, the most successful patients that I have had the pleasure of caring for have had a positive mindset. Despite how we're feeling or what trouble they may have, they almost always have a positive attitude and demonstrate gratitude, humility. This behavior is contagious, and by spreading it to others, they're more likely to receive the same behaviors in return. And this is difficult for some people, myself included, that we can wake up each day feeling thankful to have another day and choose to react with others in a positive manner, choose to have a good day. I think that's pretty common in my patients that do really well.
Love that.
Yeah, there's a couple of your patients that I hope to speak with. I'm going to somehow get a hold of them, but I think I need to talk to you, Cindy, about all of that. But okay, well, thank you so much, Justin. I do have some other questions, but I want to make sure we have time to get everyone in, especially our closer, Dr. Faravarti. How are you doing today? Thank you for being here. Let's see. Oh, you're muted. Can't hear you. Okay, cool. How's it going,
Hi,
Dr.
everyone.
Faravarti?
Very good.
So I have one thing I want to say. One thing, of course, we all like to see is more transplants happening, and we see more transplants being done. According to the UNOS, the United Network of Organ Sharing, a record number of transplants have been performed, specifically 42,887 transplants in 2022, but this includes more than 25,000 kidney transplants for the first time in a single year. And I know this is something you can speak to, Dr. Faravarti and Tammy, but I just wanted to throw that out there. You know, that that's one of the highest years that we've had in kidney transplants, I believe. What are the top 3 things you'd like to share about transplantation. And tell us what you do. I'm sorry, I didn't.
Yeah, I'm a transplant nephrologist at Sharp, and I've been here for about 10 years. What I would say is, first off, for most patients, transplant is a better option than dialysis, both in terms of improving quality of life and also allowing patients to be healthier, live longer. So really, we should do everything possible to educate patients about the option of transplant, evaluating them, which is what we do, and ultimately, hopefully making them a good candidate for a kidney transplant. So that's the first thing. Second, I would say we should, as we're doing the evaluation for patients, we should make them be very proactive about searching for a donor. This involves a lot of education. Tammy's great at doing this. A lot of times I think patients, and I hear this all the time, they may, the patients in their minds exclude family members or others who may be interested in donating for reasons that may not be may not be reasons that those patients would be excluded from donation. For example, one common thing sometimes patients say is that I'm not sure if a patient's, if a donor is going to be a right match. And now we have a great immunosuppression, so we can deal with more complicated matches. And also we have the paired exchange, which also Tammy knows a lot about. And so if there's an incompatible donor, we can put that donor into an exchange and find a suitable donor for our recipient. But the main message is that most patients that we see for transplant evaluation, we want to really engage them in looking for a donor, be very proactive. Usually within the community, there are a circle of friends and family, co-workers. There may be one person who may be able to be a donor. And like the examples that Tammy gave earlier with, bumper stickers and trying to find a donor, those are other ways of finding a donor. So we really want to promote living donor kidney transplant for all the reasons that were mentioned. The kidney works better, lasts longer in general, and also the patient's able to get a transplant right away instead of waiting 8 to 10 years. Now, patients can get a deceased donor kidney transplant, and we've had many that have worked well and are working for decades. We have some examples here, and so that is also an option for patients. But if there's a living donor, then we want to try to promote that. And then thirdly, I would say having a transplant really is a great responsibility. So we want to make sure that patients go into this, knowing that, it is life-changing, but it is a big responsibility. And ultimately, the patient will be better in terms of quality of life and being healthier and doing better. But we want to make sure that they take care of their diabetes before and after transplant, still have a healthy lifestyle, good eating habits, regular exercise, if they have heart disease, to follow up with a cardiologist regularly. The biggest thing is just taking medications. So we know that patients who take medications generally, do well in terms of keeping their transplant. And most of the times when the transplant is lost, it's usually because of not taking medications. So I would say those would be the main things I would stress for kidney transplant.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I have a question about this. So what do you think the healthcare industry is doing to slow the progression of chronic kidney disease? I know that you are involved with Balboa Research. Are there things that you can share about that?
Yeah, there are some new medications in the pipeline that may help slow the progression of kidney disease. One thing we're involved in right now is a study that uses a drug that inhibits IL-6. This is in kidney transplant patients who may be having a failing graft. Inhibiting IL-6 seems to slow the progression of kidney disease, makes the kidney last longer. So we're involved. This is a international study we're involved in. Actually, our center was enrolled the very first patient in this study. And so that seems to be promising. There's other medications out there now that are used for non-transplant patients that also may slow the progression. I think a lot of it goes back to the basics too, just making sure that all our patients have regular follow-ups. Generally that means every 3 to 4 months, they're seeing their doctors, doing labs, making sure their blood pressure is controlled, making sure their diabetes is controlled. So just kind of the basics.
Right. Okay. And by the way, Balboa Research can be found on balboacare.com. If you are interested in a clinical trial, check us out on that. I do, have you heard of, I just read the other day, Dr. Farabardi, the National Kidney Foundation is partnering or is invested in Revalo, which, and this isn't a transplant thing. This is more for peritoneal dialysis. And I think it's designed to disinfect dialysis tubes, because I know that when people are making their decision on what their modality is what they're going to choose, they kind of hesitate. A lot of people have mentioned to me that I'm worried about infection. And so this is something that it's supposed to internally disinfect the dialysis tubes, which is interesting. I mean, I did it 20 something years ago and I did have an infection, but I took medication to clear it up, but I don't think that's a reason for people to not choose that modality. But have you heard of that combo, that pairing, Kidney Foundation and Revalo?
Yeah, I haven't heard of this specific option, but it is a concern. I hear that too from some patients. They're afraid of going on PD because of the infection risk. But honestly, the risk is still low. Most patients, we have a lot of patients who are on PD who don't get peritonitis. And even if they get peritonitis, we can treat it. There's whichever dialysis modality you pick, there's always, benefits and side effects and other things. And in general, though, home dialysis is always a better option for most patients than in-center dialysis. So we always promote that. So the benefits of being on home dialysis, like peritoneal dialysis, far outweighs any risks, such as infection risks. So we always stress that to patients too.
I can make a comment
Um,
about that, if that's
yeah.
okay. Just
Yeah, of
about
course.
the infection aspect of things, because I'm a huge proponent of PD. I did PD for almost 4 years. And I also was in center, so I had a really good comparison. And because that's one of the questions that people will ask me about when I'm talking, to them about my experience, my journey. And, I say to them that I got peritonitis twice, and both times was probably user error, right? Like something happened where I got comfortable, especially the second time where I got really comfortable. I was rushing something or whatever. But the more important thing is that I'm transplanted almost 20 years and I'm still getting infections, like of just different kinds of infections, like UTIs or whatever have you, And so I just think that it's just a part of the overall human experience. It's like, it's not something that can't be treated. And so I just try to stress that aspect of things, that infection happens to everybody, It's just a matter of paying attention to your body and like the fluid, when the fluid drains out of PD, and what does it look like? How is your body feeling? Things like that. And again, to go and have an open conversation with your medical staff is really the key on getting that treated quickly. And so just like with any infection though, or just any illness or anything like that. So
Right.
I just wanted to add that's usually what I will say to people as well about the infection.
That's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up. I actually have a question for Justin. Well, anyone can join in on this question if you have something to say about it, but would you be able to, two parts really? Why do you think there's such a slow to adapt percentage of patients who choose home-based dialysis, Justin?
I think that historically, when people have needed to start dialysis, the nephrologist would place a patient on in-center hemodialysis and then later discuss home therapy options once the patient was stable or more stable. But by that time, in my opinion, the patient has developed a comfort zone, right? And anything other than in-center hemodialysis would seem abnormal. So we developed the idea that in-center hemodialysis is kind of the normal dialysis and home dialysis is the outlier, which is kind of odd if you think about it, because would you take your dirty laundry to someone else to clean it? I mean, why take your dirty blood to the center for someone else to clean it? But today, they're
Good
more
analogy.
forward-thinking,
Yeah.
right?
I've never heard
And
that
then
one before.
it's kind of the same thing, right? We got to get our blood clean. Why would we have somebody else do it? We just do it ourselves.
Mhm.
But today there's more forward-thinking nephrologists that are embracing a home-first mentality, and for some reason, if for some reason the home dialysis doesn't work out, then we would consider it being centered hemodialysis.
Mhm. Mhm. Thank you. And what are the differences between what are the differences between hemodialysis and peritoneal dialysis? And that can be with Justin and Dr. Faravarti, like both of you to chime in on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just based on patient preference. So, the peritoneal dialysis, home hemodialysis, they're both kind of slower, gentler on the body. You do it at home versus the in-center hemodialysis. I think we just educate patients on both options. Some patients don't want to, prefer just to, set themselves up with the PD catheter and the peritoneal dialysis machine at night, and so they don't want to deal with blood or, the cannulation or other things. So it's just patient preference, which one they like. But they're both great options and really equivalent in achieving cleaning the blood, removing fluid, and so forth.
And keeping you alive.
Yes.
Right.
And if I could add something about that as well, just for me, it's like PD for me was just it was a turnaround in my dialysis journey for me, because in-center for me was just very, very hard, and a lot of it was just the restrictions on the food and the diet, back then, right? I mean, it's changed a lot since then, but it was
Right.
very, very difficult to eat, the foods that I, couldn't have and all that stuff, and keep those restrictions tightened up. So PD was, it just was a lot more gentler on my body, which is something that my body really responded well to. And what I think about that is how important that is that PD also allowed me to have a little bit less restriction with fluid and with the foods that I was eating. And so it allowed my body to have more of the natural nutrients that it needs to do better, to perform better, to heal better, to all that kind of stuff. So, so it was just overall, it was just a much more natural way for me. However, it's not for everybody, it's just like you
Right.
have to try it. And so you can try both, right? You can start with in-center and you could maybe try home or vice versa. So for me, it was PD all
Yep.
the way.
You have options, people.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to say, David, is there a difference in the financial aspect of things for a patient if whatever modality they choose?
Well, there may be a difference. For example, on Medicare, you'd be responsible for 20% coinsurance, and it's more expensive to be on in-center dialysis than it is at doing home hemo or peritoneal dialysis. So there can be a difference. With Medi-Cal usually you don't have a financial responsibility, so either way, and pretty much every type of insurance will cover the transition, from peritoneal dialysis to home hemo or in-center hemo. So yeah, you do have that option.
And thank you. And Cindy, quick question for you as an education nurse. Can you share some of the best practices when it comes to educating patients on their dialysis modality choices?
Well, we go back to really understanding who your patient is. Let's take a recap of how old, where they are in their life. What does the home environment look like? Do they have any restrictions on, their health? Are they mobile? Is there anything that may impair them doing home dialysis? And so you kind of have to make those assessments. And for me, for my patients, I would say home dialysis. Really,
Yep.
That's optimal. Because you can still enjoy life. It's a lifeline for you. It's a gift, really, to really have that quality of life. So home dialysis, and what does that look like? And then we go through the steps. What are the expectations? For me, what's a catheter? What does it look like? What do you mean infection? You mean I have to do this connection? And we talk about the steps involved. And what does that look like? So to really be empowered with what does home dialysis look like and what's the process and expectations. And that's really important for our patients because you want them to make the right decision that's really going to keep them alive and healthy and make them feel comfortable with their choice. And sometimes I have patients that decide in center and then they want to do home dialysis, and sometimes it's the family trying to influence the decision of their mom or dad because they're fearful, or their obstacles is transportation and logistics, and they think about all these things. So it's encompassing, and to understand really, like, for patients to really steer them in the right direction, but knowing like all the components of making the right decision, because it's family, logistics, it's age, it's, could be other complications. So there's different factors, and
Right.
yeah. So you really need to know your patient.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And I have a really quick question for Dr. Faravarti. We were talking about GFR earlier. Cindy told us what it stood for, glomerular. Well, it's so, it's your kidney function, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering if you could go over that, Dr. Faravarti, like how, oh, no, the question with that is somebody was told, I'm going to go ahead and say is my sister who's actually watching. She was told, I don't know by who, that, you know, if you take a certain medication, perhaps your kidney function, your GFR will go up. Is that true? I mean, I thought once your kidney functioning is at a certain rate, you can't go up, but you can maintain it.
Yeah, there's no medication that we can give to make the GFR go up. Now there are, so besides the GFR, we look at sometimes the urine. If there's a lot of protein in the urine, there are medications that we can give to reduce the amount of protein in the urine. And sometimes that's more important than the GFR. Because if you have a lot of protein in the urine, that can accelerate your progression of kidney disease. And so we want to slow that down. We do have medications that are good at reducing the protein in the urine. But there's really no drug that we can give to make the GFR go higher. The only thing I will say is, whatever the underlying cause of the kidney disease is, if it's treated successfully, then that can also make the kidney function better and make the GFR go up. So one example would be somebody who has kidney disease, a flare-up of lupus, for example, and it's affecting their kidney function. So if the lupus was treated, then the kidney function may get better. So that would be one instance. But if somebody has chronic kidney disease from, say, high blood pressure, diabetes, once the damage is done, it's really tough to reverse it. What we can do is stabilize, slow the progression. But there's in those instances, really, there's nothing that we can do to improve the GFR.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. I was curious about that. And one thing real quick, we had a question, but you know, it's from Stephen. We know who Stephen is, Charmaine and Stephen Kim. And he says, and I think we're going to have David reach out to you on this, but he says, David, you helped me select the type of insurance I needed about a year and a half ago. Does anyone on the panel know how much money you need to have saved to deal with the transplant? Again, I think this is something, David, you can chat with Stephen about. And if you don't have his info, I can share that with you. But does transplant hospitals have a minimum to be considered for the wait list? Thank you to Charmaine, Kiku, Cindy, and David for the support this last year and a half. Oh, so sweet. Thanks, Stephen.
Yeah, Stephen, it's nice to hear from you. It's I'll give you a ring, possibly Monday, and just we can talk a little bit more about that.
Thanks, David.
I'm going to answer from the transplant center side. Basically, we want to make sure that you have enough insurance that's going to allow you to continue to take the medication that you need to take, and that after your transplant, you can continue to take that. Medicare, for majority of our patients after 3 years may fall off some. I know that there's some new rules now, so David probably could help people with that. And so just making sure that we have the correct amount of coverage so that we don't lose your transplant because you can't afford medication.
Wealth of knowledge. Love it. Thank you, guys. Last thing before we wrap up, I want to ask all of our panelists, what do you hope viewers will take away from our discussion? So maybe share your most passionate point about our discussion today. And I'm looking at everyone's faces. Charmaine, you start.
Okay. So first, I just want to thank everybody for coming and all the participants who are watching and listening. So I guess my most passionate point that I tell people is to remember that it's a grieving process, and that when you when you have your life a certain way and then you start going into chronic kidney failure and then you become ESRD, your life is going to change, obviously. And so for
End-stage
patients
renal
and
disease.
yeah, end-stage renal
sorry.
disease. Thank you. No, end-stage renal disease. Thank you. So it's just important for patients and for their caregivers, family members, loved ones, everybody involved, to remember that it's a whole, it's like a village, right? That needs to have open communication and understanding about what the person is going through, but also the person to understand that they're going through it too, but on a different level. And I experienced that firsthand, is that I went through all the stages of grief. I was angry, I was sad, I was just like the whole thing, and you're grieving the life that you had. And so, so just remember that, and just remember that your emotions are valid, they're okay, and that you will eventually get to a place of acceptance. And when that happens, that's when the new journey like really happens, right? That's when you start opening up and communicating about what your options are to have a better quality of life and all of that. So it's just important for everybody to know that what they're feeling is valid.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. Thank you, Charmaine.
You're welcome.
You know what? Just a point. I met my husband while I was on dialysis. So, that's a positive. Okay, now, Cindy, you're chattering there.
Yeah.
Let's go with you. What would you like to share?
Yeah, I mean, this is such a big journey for our patients, and I know there's a lot of good resources out there, and it's not just the nurses trying to help, the physicians are really trying to help. We have other resources out there that are social workers trying to help, pharmacists trying to help. And if people are trying to reach you, to support you, and to make new interventions to make it easier for you, try to find time to receive those other interventions and those other resources, because it will make your journey a little bit easier. So I don't know, just wanted to share.
Right on. Thank you. Thank you for that. Mr. Ordaz.
Okay, so
David.
Passionate about insurance, but resources too. I want everybody to know that resources are available. Everything from emotional support, patient medication assistance programs, even medically tailored meals for those patients who have chronic kidney disease. All these different resources are available, and so yeah, you want to take advantage of them. That's all I gotta say.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Justin, what are your closing thoughts?
Well, I think just that joining this WebEx, that we're demonstrating the want for education, right? I think that education is paramount to success. I think the more you educate yourself about the chronic kidney disease and the options and things we can do to deal with that, and to empower yourself to make good health decisions and use the resources around you to achieve that goal, would be my
Thank you.
best.
Thanks, Justin. Miss Tammy.
I just want to
Your
say that there's hope for all of you, that having kidney failure or kidney disease is not the end of the world. We have people that can help you. We're here to support you. We're here to give you your options and to help you make the right decision for you and have a better life. So many people, as you see here, have a better life. And so we're here to help you.
Thanks, Tammy. Look, we're getting some hearts. Oh, I love that. Thank you. Who's doing that? I can't tell who's doing it, but thanks. That's awesome.
I love that. That's so
I do
awesome.
too. Look, oh, thank you.
I see somebody that I know on the chat. So in the attendees. So near and dear to my heart.
Oh, nice. Well, thank you. I love seeing those. And of course, last but not least, Dr. Faravardi. What are your closing comments, your thoughts?
I just want to say on World Kidney Day that really yeah, there are a lot of options and a lot of hope for patients with chronic kidney disease, including dialysis, but also transplantation. So really want to make sure that everybody gets referred for evaluation for transplant. And I know our team is really ready to help everybody become successful for kidney transplant. And that would be my primary message.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Charmaine, you had one more thing you wanted to share.
I did. There's just so many important things to say that I'm passionate about. But the other thing is about transplant and about telling your story and asking people for a kidney and to donate. Just tell your story. You know, that's the most important thing. You don't have to ask somebody for a kidney. You just tell your story, and you will be amazed at how many people out there want to help. They don't know how. And so, you know, I've heard so many stories about, you know, oh, I shared my story in church, or I shared for myself, I shared my story at work because I was sick and I was missing work. And so I shared that, oh my goodness, like I had 25 people that wanted to go test, you know, but they didn't know. So, so I just encourage people to just share your story, be it on social media, with family, with friends, with whoever, and just get that word out.
Yeah, a couple of people received their transplant here in San Diego through TikTok, right, Tammy?
Yep.
Yeah, and on the side of a car.
Yep.
But then also people also use, you know, lawn signs. There's all kinds of cool creative things. Definitely social media is huge. So yeah, thanks for making that point. I appreciate that. I also want to say thank you for watching, everyone. And thank you to our panelists for an excellent discussion. One of ReMend's primary goals is to educate the public about kidney disease and encourage people to make informed decisions about their kidney health. So thank you very much to everyone who joined us and listened in. I hope you enjoyed the discussion and learned as much as I did. So join us again next month for another Kidney Conversations with ReMend, when we focus on living donation in honor of National Donate Life Month. Our webinar will be April 13th, same time, 5:30 and same place. So if you or someone you know is dealing with kidney disease and would like to speak to someone who's been on their own kidney journey, please reach out to ReMend because we can help. So our web address is is remend.org. So reach out on our contact page to see how you can be involved. You can also check out our previous webinars on remend.org or our YouTube channel. So we at ReMend, as well as our wonderful partners and friends here, want you to know that you are not alone. You have resources as well as people who are willing to listen, and they truly care. So thank you so much for watching, and peace out, everyone.
Thank you, Kiku.
Thank you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, guys.
Cindy.
Thank you,
Bye,
Kiku.
guys.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone.
Thanks, guys. You're all
Bye.
awesome. Thank you.
Everybody.
Bye.
Take care, everyone.